Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurmitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shivatapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijan Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vindavaneshwari Vishavanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kipasindubheva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, thank you all for coming. So, before we begin, a couple of quick announcements that this Sunday, November 2nd, daylight savings time changes in Toronto. So from following week, for those in India and Nepal, the time will change. Toronto time will stay the same at 8:30 p.m. Fridays. India time will become 7 a.m. Saturday, and Nepal time will become 7:15 a.m. Saturdays. The second announcement is that His Grace Uttan Prabhu from Toronto Temple is taking a yatra to Vrindavan, Jagannath Puri and Mayapur from 11th February to 26th February 2026. So if anybody is interested, you can please join. So we have two posters. This poster that we have on screen, Raksha made it. And then we also have the other poster that Uttan Prabhu has made. They were identical content, just the visuals are different. So if anybody is interested, either here or anywhere in the world, to go, then you can connect with Uttan Prabhu, or you can always connect with me also. I can pass on the message to him. It's always good to travel with somebody known, just as few devotees have traveled recently and I have given them some guidance. It's always good to go with somebody known. For next class on chapter 14, I have the template on the screen. I will put this template in the chat. It's a pretty straightforward boxes. Can print or draw on a letter size or A4 size page. So I will share this template in the chat. All right, I shared the template in the chat, so please print it for next class or draw. It's pretty straightforward to just even draw if you cannot print. So have the template with you. You will realize the importance of the template for chapter 14 on the moods. Any questions, comments, realizations before we continue chapter 13?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
For tour in February, is that the dham we will visit? Is there any other location we will cover?
So Uttan Prabhu will cover 3 places, Vrindavan, then he will go to Puri and then Mayapur. 3 places.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So today we will aim to cover chapter 13, the rest of the verses from verse number 13 onwards, and finish chapter 13 today. We'll at least aim to finish chapter 13 today. So we discussed a lot of practical points at our previous classes on chapter 13. Now this verse 13 onwards is section 4. Section 4 is verses 13 to 19. Title is Gayam, the object of knowledge. And this is answer to Arjuna's 6th question. Yes, what is Gayam? And Krishna will answer in these set of verses. Now, these verses are somewhat difficult to comprehend. So we'll cover at a high level. So the object of knowledge or the goal that which we are searching through knowledge is called Gayam. Gayam is the absolute truth. So Krishna will go on to say that Gayam is avigayam, means Gayam is unknowable. Although we are searching for Gayam, the absolute truth, but Gayam is unknowable. The knowable is unknowable. So all these verses are talking about contradictory attributes of the supreme absolute truth. Malti, verse number 13, translation.
Um, 12.13.
Your voice is very soft.
I connected to laptop. If someone else can do.
Okay, we cannot really understand what you are saying. Sumnima, verse number 13. So Malti, fix your audio.
Hare Krishna. I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal. Brahman, the spirit, beginless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. Hare Krishna.
So what is to be known is Gayam, the absolute truth. There are many things that one can know, but ultimately the final object of Gayam is the absolute truth. By knowing this Gayam, one will attain Amrita. So here Amrita refers to immortality. When we understand the Gayam, when we understand the soul and the Lord, and we understand the relationship between the two, that relationship enables us to taste the nectar of pure devotion. Initially, one tastes the nectar of devotion, and eventually he will come to tasting the nectar of pure devotion. Finally, we go back to spiritual world where we keep tasting the nectar of pure devotion eternally. Mansi, verse number 14, translation.
Hare Krishna. X14. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes, heads and faces, and he has ears everywhere. In this way, the super soul exists, pervading everything. Hare Krishna.
So pervading everything. So this is the Brahman aspect, the impersonal absolute truth. And the other features of hands, legs, etc. is referring to the Paramatma feature. So we are trying to know the game, and actually knowing Paramatma should be easy because Paramatma is in everyone and Paramatma is everywhere. So Paramatma observes everything and he can do everything. He knows everything. This is Gayam. Padma Kumar Prabhu, verse number 15, very well known verse.
The super soul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature. At the same time, he is the master of all the modes of material nature. Hare Krishna.
So in lectures, Prabhupada chuckles at this verse. The line he says, Sarvendriya Gunabhasham, Sarvendriya Vivarjitam. So the point being made in these verses is that absolute truth has inconceivable attributes. Now, inconceivability does not mean we cannot understand. Rather, inconceivable means we cannot understand at our present level of consciousness. But over a period of time, we will be able to understand more and more, and simultaneously also understand that we will never be able to understand the absolute truth completely. Now, verse 15 says that the super soul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. So how do you understand this? And therefore Prabhupada chuckles, Sarvendriya Gunabhasham, Sarvendriya Vivarjitam, the Sanskrit of verse 15. So what this means is that our material senses, into our spiritual senses for the soul, the absolute truth is the source of all these senses. But the absolute truth does not have material senses. The absolute truth has spiritual senses. And that's what the verse is saying, that although the super soul is source of all senses, yet he is without senses, meaning he is without material senses. Of course, he has spiritual senses. Questions, comments, realizations? Sumnima?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. It is said that, in text 14, he's everywhere, but why do we go to holy dhams if he's everywhere? Like, how is it different there?
So
Isn't it like we're supposed to do everything everywhere in the
you're
same way?
supposed to do everything everywhere as long as you have the consciousness for this. So ask yourself, are you able to see the super soul everywhere?
No, Prabhuji.
Yeah. If you're able to see Super Soul everywhere, then you are in Vaikuntha, no matter where you are. So we go to Holy Dham because the Lord left his potency at special places so that we get purified. In Bhagavatam is described that we go to the Holy Dham to purify our sins. Well, then the question will become, well, then the Holy Dham will be very sinful because it is full of sins of all people. And simultaneously, at the same place, it describes that pure devotees go to Holy Dham to purify the Holy Dham. So therefore, we go to Holy Dham so that we get purified, we get the association of pure devotees, we elevate ourselves so that at some point of time, we don't need to travel to Holy Dham. And actually in Srimad Bhagavatam, as a verse, Narottam Das Thakur says, there is absolutely no need to travel to Holy Dham. The verse goes on to say that you make the place where you are as Holy Dham by having Gopinath at your home, doing Krishna Katha at your home, inviting devotees at your home, serving them prasadam. Bhagavatam actually says there is no need to travel to Holy Dham, but we still travel till we get purified. Sumnima, everyone?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you.
Right. Path Prabhu's verse 16 translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Text 16. The supreme truth exists outside and inside of all living beings, the moving and the non-moving. Because he is Satya, he is beyond the power of material senses to see or to know. Although far, far away, he is also near to all. Hare Krishna.
So this section started by Krishna saying, I will talk about Gayam. So here in verse number 16, Krishna is saying that the Gayam is Avigayam, unknowable. The Gayam is Avigayam, is the knowable is unknowable. So for non-devotees, Krishna is far away. And for devotees, Krishna is very close. Although he resides very far away in Goloka Vrindavan, simultaneously he is also residing everywhere else. Now, how to understand these contradictory points? So it's referring to different aspects of the absolute truth. So part of the statement refers to one aspect, and other part of the statement refers to other aspects. So saying that Bhagwan is far away and ParamAtma is close to us. So Kshirodakshai Vishnu is inside all of us. And Mahavishnu and Garbhodakshai Vishnu are outside of us. I already said at the start of these verses that these verses are difficult to comprehend. Questions, comments, realizations? Malti 17 translation.
Hare Krishna. Text 17. Although the super soul appears to be divided among all beings, he is never divided. He is situated as one. Although he is the maintainer of every living entity, it is to be understood that he devours and develops all. Hare Krishna.
So all these verses are talking about contradictory attributes of the Supreme Absolute Truth. That Super Soul is one, but appears divided. So there is super soul in my heart and there is super soul in your heart. It is one. So super soul in everyone's heart, but has many manifestations as if divided. So I'll give you an analogy to understand the presence of super soul in everyone's heart. So say when you have moon in the sky and you put 8 buckets of water on the floor, so the moon gets reflected in the 8 buckets. So the moon is one, but at the same time, it is not the same one when reflected in the bucket. Now, why it's not the same? Because the potency of the reflection of the moon is not identical to the potency of the original moon. The reflection of the moon cannot reflect the same way. The reflection cannot offer the same warmth. Now, although this is a material example of the moon and the moon's reflection, is just to understand the point. But when it comes to super soul, the super soul that is expanded in all of us has the same potency as the original super soul. Now, somebody may ask, what happens when somebody dies? What happens to the super soul? Or somebody may say, well, when somebody takes birth, how does the super soul come in there? So you had 8 buckets, and if you remove one bucket, well, super soul is no longer there in the reflection, meaning the analogy that somebody leaves the body. So the super soul's reflection is no longer there. And similarly, say if you put the 9th bucket, well, you will have the reflection in 9 buckets. So super soul keeps expanding on every living entity and every atom. I will pause here for questions, comments, realizations. Everybody clear on the super soul? Silence, I got silence.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yeah, go ahead.
The very last point you made, super soul expands. Isn't it already there? Like the existence of anything is there because of the presence of super soul. So if it's not there, nothing can exist. Whether like anything in this material world. The
You are,
expansion is already
yeah,
happened.
yeah, you are correct that super soul is already there. But when a soul takes a material body, then the super soul accompanies the individual soul in the material body. So verse is coming up here in 13.23, although we have covered at the start of chapter 13 that there are 2 Kshetragya. So the point I'm saying is that as soon as a soul enters in the mother's womb and the body starts forming, the super soul also simultaneously is in the body, which will come up in chapter 13, verse 25, and is also described in Srimad Bhagavatam also. Abhishek Prabhu.
Thank you.
Malti, verse number 18, translation. Malti. Follow me, verse 18, translation.
Hare Krishna, verse 18. He is the source of light in all luminous objects. He is beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifested. He is knowledge. He is the object of knowledge and he is the goal of knowledge. He is situated in everyone's heart.
So he is knowledge, he is object of knowledge, and he is goal of knowledge. Now, question is, what is the difference between object of knowledge and goal of knowledge? To understand this, example is a medical doctor is investigating a patient, which is the object of knowledge, meaning the thing about which the knowledge is wanted is the patient or the patient's body. By various tests, scans, getting knowledge about the patient's body, this is the object. But the goal is not just to get the knowledge about the patient's body. Rather, the goal is to get cured, to improve the health of the patient. This way, you can understand that there is difference between object of knowledge and goal of knowledge. So, game can be material knowledge also. That is to be known. But material knowledge cannot liberate us from material existence. So Krishna says, Gayam is avigayam. The knowable is unknowable. So what's the point of these verses? So in nutshell, how do you understand Gayam? What is Gayam for us? What is it that we understand from these verses? The answer is, Gayam for us is the knowledge of the Atma, the knowledge of the Paramatma, and the relationship of love between the Atma and the Paramatma. This is Gayam for us. This knowledge brings liberation. Everybody with me? Questions, comments, realizations?
Prabhu, can you repeat the three things which you mentioned? What is game? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Gayam for us is the knowledge of Atma, the knowledge of Paramatma, and the relationship of love between the Atma and Paramatma. This is Gayam for us. And this knowledge will bring liberation. All right, Pratish Prabhu, last verse in the Gayam section, verse 19 translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Verse 19. Thus the field of activities, the body, knowledge, and the knowable have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature.
So we are in the heart of Jnana section of Bhagavad Gita. So I described at the start of chapter 13 that chapter 13 to 18 are the Jnana section of Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna is stating that one can know this knowledge only by bhakti, not just by mental speculation, not by intellectual speculation, but only by bhakti. When one understands this, one will attain one's eternal spiritual nature, meaning attain the same nature as Krishna's spiritual existence. Now, this is a significant verse right in the heart of Jnana section of Bhagavad Gita. That so far in the Jnana section of Bhagavad Gita, chapters 13 to 18, right at the start in chapter 13, Bhakti has already come twice. First in chapter 13, verse 8 to 12, is described about the need for Bhakti. That only devotees, only by Bhakti you can understand these knowledge points. And then here, second time in 13.19. So even if one who is practicing jnana or the Jnana Yoga path, one has to include bhakti. Only then the Jnana Yogi can attain the highest destination. So if one focuses on cultivating bhakti itself, then jnana will automatically follow. So Bhagavatam has many verses in Canto 1, Chapter 2, at least one. There are other verses also, many places, that by doing devotional service, jnana and vairagya automatically follow. So you can take the path of Jnana Yoga and then add Bhakti, but better is you just take the path of Bhakti and the byproduct is Jnana and Vairagya. Sumnima has a point in the chat, let's read. Will Bhakti also help to realize Supersoul, or will Bhakti help us to realize the love of Krishna? Is both possible? So this will get covered in chapter 15 and chapter 18. In chapter 18, verse 49 to 53 is the leftover discussion on Jnana Yoga. In chapter 15 also, this point will get covered, that you can attain spiritual world through the Jnana Yoga path. But it is little difficult. We already discussed in 12.5, Krishna has already established that in embodied body, Jnana Yoga is very difficult. So generally, the Jnana Yogi is not focusing on ParamAtma. Means he's not focusing on Super Soul. The Jnana Yogi is focusing on the Brahman effulgence. When the Jnana Yogi or any transcendentalist adds bhakti, then he has the option of all three: Brahman effulgence, Paramatma realization, and Bhagwan realization. Although, when somebody adds bhakti, why would they go for lower realizations of Brahman effulgence and Paramatma? So it's possible, but they bypass. And this is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7, that when Srila Vyasadeva did the bhakti meditation and he was going back home to Godhead, on the way he saw Brahman effulgence, he bypassed. He also saw Paramatma, he bypassed, saying Brahman effulgence and Paramatma realizations are not complete realizations. Sumnima and everybody, does that answer? Sumnima?
Prabhuji, I was just curious. There are so many people who do bhakti and they don't really read scriptures, but or they don't realize all of things like super soul and also. Does their bhakti, without the knowledge of super soul or anything, eventually get them knowledge about all of these things?
Yeah, so the answer is verse 7.19. Bahunam janmayante. Read 7.19 translation, Sumnima.
7.19. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare.
Right, so we have discussed this towards the end of chapter 7 also about those who are Brahmavadis, that they don't have devotee association, therefore they don't have complete knowledge. They just think that Brahman effulgence is the highest, or Sumnima is describing slightly mixed than Brahmavadis. But point is that they don't have complete knowledge. And they continue their path, and at some point of time they get mercy of pure devotee, and then 7.19 triggers that finally they come to surrendering to Krishna, that Vasudev is everything.
Prabhuji,
And
I was just saying, if they're already surrendered to Krishna and all, do they still need to know all of these things?
so there are two paths when you surrender to Krishna. One is you first understand theoretical knowledge and then surrender to Krishna. Like me, I don't have faith from before. So I need to build faith by studying scriptures, by associating with devotees. And the other path is somebody with lot of faith. For example, gopis, they never studied any of the scriptures. They were surrendered to Krishna from day one because they had that faith. So it depends on your level of faith. Sumnima?
Yes, Prabhuji. So basically, if somebody has lots of faith like Gopi, they do not need to understand or know things like super soul or any of these, right?
So Krishna has said in 10.10, Tadami Buddhi Yogam Tam, that one who is devoted to my devotional service, I give the understanding. Krishna gives all the knowledge by which they go back to Krishna. So Krishna gives all the knowledge. If you ask gopis, they never studied any of these scriptures, but they know everything. How? Because Krishna is imparting the knowledge from within. Sumnima?
Okay, Prabhuji. Yes, thank you.
Very good. Everybody on the same page? Questions, comments, realizations?
Hare
Hare
Uh,
Krishna.
this is true for all yoga paths, as long as there is element of bhakti. They have all destinations open, even if difficult.
Yeah, you are correct. That so we have discussed this at Yoga Ladder, that somebody is only doing Gyan Yoga and stopping at Gyan Yoga, then Brahman effulgence is the maximum. Somebody is only doing Ashtanga Yoga, then Paramatma realization is the maximum destination. And in the same Gyan Yoga and Ashtanga Yoga paths, if they add Bhakti, so if you recall Yoga Ladder, you had paths number 7, 8, and 9, where somebody following Gyan Yoga is adding Bhakti, somebody following Ashtanga Yoga is adding Bhakti. Well, of course, when Bhakti is there, they are more focused on the highest destination, but somebody may still choose. It still is their free will. somebody may still choose that, okay, I will go to Brahman effulgence. All those who choose Brahman effulgence, well, their bhakti was never pure to begin with. Therefore, they are choosing the lower destination. Bhakti means to serve Krishna. But if after adding bhakti, they purified themselves to get out of the material entanglement, but they're saying, I don't want to serve Krishna, well, your bhakti was not pure. You had the motive to get out of material entanglement, therefore you are choosing Brahman effulgence. Abhishek Prabhu?
And Puri, the king example which we hear in Bhagavatam, like who at the end of their life kind of left everything and maybe practice Ashtanga Yoga, that is Ashtanga Yoga with Bhakti, and then go back to Krishna. Like Bharat Maharaj was trying to do, Dhruv Maharaj was also doing some kind, and other kings also. They generally leave and go uh, to forest and they do Ashtanga Yoga.
So Ashtanga Yoga, the examples that you are giving, they are in Satyug time. So in
Okay.
Satyug, Ashtanga Yoga was the bhakti process. Like now, right now, we have clearly discussed in chapter 6 that Ashtanga Yoga is not the yoga process for this Kali Yuga, and it is available as an option. So Krishna says, we discussed towards the end of chapter 5 in verse 26, in verse 27, 28. So Arjuna's two options were to do Karma Yoga or Jnana Yoga. And in chapter 5, verse 27, 28, Krishna says that if at all you want to do meditation towards the end of your life, don't do Jnana Yoga, do Ashtanga Yoga, and focus on the Paramatma. And we have discussed this towards the end of chapter 5 and the beginning of chapter 6, that devotees in ISKCON, their bhakti is so mature that they follow the express elevator path from the yoga ladder, that from Karma Yoga, they continue Bhakti Yoga till the last moment of death. They don't go to Ashtanga Yoga at all because their bhakti is so matured. Abhishek Prabhu.
So why was the Ashtanga Yoga path option for Arjuna even a consideration?
It's not for
Anyway,
Arjuna.
Ashtanga.
Yeah, Bhagavad Gita is not for Arjuna. Krishna has clearly said at the start of chapter 6 that if at all somebody wants to renounce towards the end of their life, then Ashtanga Yoga is the option available. But it's an option, it's not mandatory.
And in their Ashtanga Yoga, they can like there can be Ashtanga Yoga plus mixed with Bhakti, not just pure Paramatma focused Ashtanga Yoga. Like they can go to all destinations if they practice like that.
Yeah, so if you are focusing on bhakti, then better is just continue bhakti. Why do you have to go to Ashtanga Yoga process?
Okay, so so the examples of king which we generally hear, only devotee kings, they practice Ashtanga Yoga only because that was kind of Bhakti Yoga process of that age.
Yeah, all the examples are in Satyug time. Although Dhritarashtra also attained perfection by Ashtanga Yoga, that was Dwarpayu. So there will be exceptions, right? You can't use exceptions as a rule. So there will be exceptions, but those exceptions are few, right?
Yes. Thank you, Prabhu.
Everybody on the same page? Shivji?
So, this Bhishma Panchak is coming. So Bhishma did Bhakti Yoga or did he do both Ashtanga Yoga and Bhakti Yoga?
Bhishma Dev only did Bhakti Yoga. So it's described at great length in Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 1, Chapter 9. Title is Bhishma Dev's Prayers while leaving his body. Bhishma Dev, his entire life was bhakti. Although he lived a karma kanda life, but that was the service given to him by Krishna. So Bhishma Dev was a Vasu in his previous life, and Krishna personally went to Bhishma Dev that I want you to take birth on earth and demonstrate karma kanda. So he was doing service to Krishna. And the last part of his life is definitely at pure devotional level. Therefore, his prayers, they are very beautiful prayers, among my favorite prayers in Srimad Bhagavatam. And he did pure devotional service. Those prayers, he is glorifying so many attributes of Krishna and the gopis and devotees, and attained the Parthasarathi form where in the Vaikuntha where Parthasarathi form is eternally residing. So Bhishma Dev is not only a pure devotee, he is also a Mahajan. So in entire creation, there are only 12 Mahajans. It's described in Srimad Bhagavatam 6.3.20. And some of the examples I'll give you is that Brahmaji is a Mahajan, Bhishma Dev, Vidur, or not Vidur, but he is actually what's the name I'm looking for? The one who punishes the
Yamraj.
soul. Yamraj, thank you. Yeah, Yamraj. So Yamraj took birth as Vidur, then Sukadev Goswami, then Shiva. This way there are 12 Mahajans in entire creation. Mahajan means one who knows everything about spirituality. Shrivanshi?
And yet he was in the wrong side of the history, like.
So that was a service given to him.
Okay.
So Krishna uses his pure devotees to teach rest of the world. So Krishna used Bhishma Dev for this very specific service, that he wanted to teach to the world that if you are against Krishna, no matter how powerful you are, you will be defeated. I mean, Bhishma Dev was very, very powerful. He had the boon to leave his body at his will. It was impossible to defeat Bhishma Dev. And this is the lesson Krishna wanted to teach to the rest of the world, that if you are against Krishna, you will be defeated. And he used his pure devotee Bhishma Dev to be on the side of adharma deliberately to teach to the rest of the world. Sure.
Okay, Prabhuji.
All right. So many of you are still silent. And for verse number 20, I'm going to ask you a question and all of you should wake up. Although some of you are nicely communicating, it's only some who are still maybe sleeping. So section 5 is verses 20 to 26. Title is Prakriti and Purusha. This is answer to Arjuna's first and second question. So this verse 20 has 2 points. And we'll read and I will ask you a question. Raksha, verse 20 translation.
Text 20. Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature. Hare Krishna.
All right. So here's a question for all of you. Do you all agree with this first part of the statement, which says both Prakriti and Purusha are eternal? Do you agree with that statement? Don't we know that all this is temporary? Everybody, please try to answer yes or no. Shruti says yes, okay. But don't we know that we are in a temporary world? Padma Kumar Prabhu says no, okay. I have nice varying answers, okay. Shruti has to add something.
No, Prabhuji.
Okay, rest of you, everybody please answer. Mansi agrees, I already said, but don't we know that we are in a temporary world? Somnima?
Yes, Prabhuji, we are in
Prabhuji,
a temporary.
repeat the question. I'm a little confused.
So if you read the first part of 13.20, it says material nature and living entities should be understood to be beginless. So soul, we understand that soul is beginless, it's eternal. But material nature to be eternal, do you agree with that statement? Don't we know that material nature, everything is temporary, the material world? Okay, Somnima says no, so I got 50-50. Rest of you, everybody, I want an answer from everybody. Follow me, you agree to what? That material nature is beginless, is eternal?
Yes, Prabhuji.
How? But don't we know that material world is temporary? Path Prabhu, don't we know material world is temporary?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, my feelings is that the material nature is created and destroyed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah, but that's not
That's
what the
why
verse says. No, that's not what the verse says. Read 13.20. It says material nature should be understood to be beginless. So your point that it is manifested and annihilated, that is not correct. So Shreyanshi and Shruti, they are saying material nature is temporary. So I'm going to be devil's advocate and Shruti is going to have fun. So are you saying Bhagavad Gita is not correct? You're having fun. At least I am having fun.
I think the context here in the text, verse 20, is different, is what I think.
What is the context? All right. Ritu is confused. Okay. Pratyush says no. Malti, you wanted to say something?
I think it's yes, Prabhuji. If birth and death is never end, then there will be a material nature forever.
Yeah, material nature, I understand what you're saying. But don't we know material world to be temporary?
Mm, yes, it is, but it's not.
All right. how it is and it is not.
Prabhuji, is it like the seasons that all are temporary, but the change is permanent? And that's
All
also
right.
nature.
Okay. So Abhishek Prabhu has the right answer in the chat. Abhishek Prabhu says material nature and material world are not the same thing. So understand this properly. So the changes that we see in material nature all around us, they are born from matter. So all these material things, meaning the material forms like my body, your body, building, table, chair, whatever, all these material things, they are temporary. They are made from material nature. They are temporary. But Pradhan, the original material nature, that is not temporary, that is eternal. So things or the form to specific items, phone, laptop, chair, table, body, etc., buildings, etc., all these things are temporary. But material nature itself, the pradhan, that is energy of God, that energy, that matter as a thing is not temporary. That pradhan is eternal. So I described this in chapter 13, verse 6 and 7 also. That pradhan is like a clay brick. A child wants to play, he will break a corner of the clay brick and try to make something out of it. So the pradhan is original material nature, it stays as it is. And the child, the child who has broken off the corner, that is the manifested material world, that is temporary. But pradhan is original material nature, is eternal. So take an example that building is not eternal, because building is constructed at some time and then gets demolished at some time. But the components used to build the building, that are eternal, like the components exist forever, like the brick and the cement and what else. Similarly, Prakriti or Pradhan is eternal, but specific forms of Prakriti, like my body, your body, phone, laptop, chair, table, buildings, etc., these are the forms made out of Prakriti, they are temporary. What causes misery to us is because we get attached to these temporary things. We get attached to body and bodily relations. This causes bondage and misery. Everybody with me? Questions, comments, realizations? Shruti was the only one had fun both ways. Shreyanshi?
I'm just curious. So, it's mentioned that Brahma came after annihilation of three worlds, like he came from the lotus flower. So, does this validate that even though the three worlds are annihilated, then there was like it basically got converted and the energy was like it gave rise to the lotus flower, and then Brahma came and then again he created the world.
So you will hear the discussion in Bhagavad Gita 8.17 that there are two annihilations. One is partial annihilation, where Brahmaji still exists, the topmost planet where he resides. During partial annihilation, the topmost planet stays and everything below gets annihilated, which is every day of Brahma when night falls, there is partial annihilation. And full annihilation is when Brahmaji's 100-year life ends, then everything, entire material universe gets destroyed. And described in Srimad Bhagavatam that the current cycle where we are living in, this is not the first creation cycle. There have been many creation cycles from before. And if all souls do not get purified, then cycles will continue in future also. And your point about Brahmaji after annihilation, so you have to clarify for yourself that which annihilation you are talking about. So when creation happens for the first time, Brahmaji, every creation is a different Brahmaji. In different universes, a different Brahmaji. He is the first living entity born from the lotus that sprouts from the navel of Garbhodakshai Vishnu. Brahmaji takes birth on the lotus flower. So he's the first living entity when creation happens for the first time. Shreyanshi, does that clarify?
Okay, Prabhuji.
Everybody on the same page?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, like, do we know what is this material nature? Like, when we talk about nature, it's a very subtle thing, like my nature, your nature. Uh, so we see the manifestations, but uh, what is this material nature actually?
So you're talking about material nature or your nature?
No, material nature.
Yeah. So your nature is different than material nature. So we have discussed material nature in chapter 13, verse number 6, the 24 elements. That is material nature. That and is described in Srimad Bhagavatam also, that material nature is consist of the modes, and from the modes mixed with ego, all these 24 elements get manifested. So I have described multiple times. If somebody wants to listen to this, to my class recording from Canto 3, Chapter 5, about how creation happens, so step-by-step process given, that Mahat Tattva means material nature, then ego is also there and time is also there. Everything gets mixed, and step-by-step process, including the glance of Vishnu, all these 24 elements get manifested one after the other. Vishek Prabhu?
So, like, even though we say that these are material nature constitutes of these material elements, they are very subtle, right? Uh, like, it's not the elements or objects we see in this
Yeah,
world.
the elements are subtle. You are correct. I mean, some you see, for example, you see fire, you see water. These are also elements. Some you see, but then they all have these subtle components also. Like, for example, ether has sound as the subtle manifestation. So some are subtle, some you see. Abhishek Prabhu.
Thank you.
All right. Everybody on the same page? And the second part of the verse, Krishna explains that whatever changes happen, or the changes that we see around, they are coming from Prakriti. Now, what does this mean? That changes are coming from Prakriti. That simply means that the changes are happening in the arena of Prakriti. So we have discussed this previous movie theater example, that person watching movie in a theater, whatever is happening on the movie theater screen, that has nothing to do with the person sitting in the movie theater watching the movie. Whatever is changing is within the arena of the movie theater screen. But we get attached to these temporary forms, meaning we are getting attached to the movie screen, and we have these transformations of happiness and distress. So here in 13.20, Krishna states that Purusha and Prakriti are eternal, meaning soul and the Prakriti at the Pradhan level, they are eternal. But the changes are produced by Prakriti. And these changes are temporary. Now, a question may come up that if Prakriti is producing the changes, then is it Prakriti that is experiencing the emotions? So who is experiencing the emotions and how? And this is described in 13.21. Ritu, 13.21 translation.
Hare Krishna. Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. Hare Krishna.
So what Krishna is saying, that material nature is the cause of cause and effects. And the word bhoktatve in 13.22, meaning the enjoying mentality of the living entity, is the cause of happiness and distress. So, material nature is the cause of all cause and effects. You can replace the word cause with the word arena, meaning material nature is the arena where the cause and effects happen. Movie example from earlier, that a person's desire to watch the movie, meaning person is wanting bhoktratve, the enjoying mentality, which leads to happiness and distress for the living entity. If the person does not watch the movie, then there will be neither distress nor happiness. The happiness and distress comes because of bhoktatve, the person desire to watch the movie, meaning the person desire to come to material world to enjoy the material modes of nature. Similarly, one experiences happiness and distress because of one's enjoying mentality, because of bhoktratve. So if the movie is going on and there are two friends, one goes to the movie, he will have these emotions. But if the other person, the other friend chooses not to go to the movie, then he will not have the emotions that the first friend is having from watching the movie. So because of bhoktratve, the enjoying mentality, the person starts enjoying the movie, means because of bhoktratve, the soul comes to the material world, and because of this, the enjoyment and distress come upon the living entity. Because of presence of the person trying to observe the movie, meaning wanting to enjoy in the material world, the emotions come about in the person. But irrespective of that person's presence, the events on the movie screen will continue to happen. So even if the second friend does not go to watch the movie will still play. Meaning, even if we choose to not come to the material world, the material world will continue to exist. The different seasons are happening within the arena of material nature. But it is the soul who has placed himself in the arena of material nature because of enjoying mentality, resulting in the soul experiencing pleasure and pain. Another example is cricket match. That India wins cricket match against arch rivals. Now there are many arch rivals in cricket. So why we get happiness when India wins is because we identify ourselves with the Indian cricket team. Something is happening on the TV screen, cricket match is going on the TV screen, which has an emotional effect on the person watching the match because of bhoktratve, enjoying mentality. And the counter example for this is, so here today in Toronto, there is some match, some baseball match for the local Toronto team. But I have no clue about baseball. I am not interested in baseball at all. So I am not affected by those emotions that almost entire city of Toronto is affected today because of this very important final match. So I have chosen not to be not to go to watch that movie, and I will not have any emotions. Similarly, if we all choose not to come to this miserable material world, then we will not have the happiness and distress. Material world will continue to exist. It is because of our own bhoktatva, enjoying mentality is why we are here in the material world and why we are having the happiness and distress emotions. So here Krishna is clearly differentiating between matter and spirit to help us understand how the soul has become entangled. The soul becomes entangled because of enjoying mentality. Everybody with me? Questions, comments, realizations? Silence. Go ahead, bro.
Like our like my state, we know that this and so material engagement is not good, but we just know that it's not good. It's not that we don't have the desire to enjoy that. Uh, like let's say cricket, I can stop watching cricket, but it's not that at this point I don't like watching it. So if somehow it comes in front of me, I again get
So this is bhoktratva, right? We still have studied the scriptures, but the realization has not yet happened, right? So what Abhishek Prabhu is saying is a very good point, that yes, I understand from scriptures that I am not supposed to, but I'm still doing it. So there's a difference between not supposed to versus what reality is happening, because deep down, I still have that enjoying mentality. Abhishek Prabhu?
and our devotional practice, like slowly and slowly it removes, like that's one of the goals.
Yeah, you are correct. So visualize yourself few years back, 2, 3, 4, 5 years back. What were you doing on the weekends? Right? Going out with friends or just talking prajalpa or watching TV. Not really involved in so much devotional activities. So little by little, the devotional activity is growing and growing and growing. And this will continue life after life after life if you didn't purify in this life. And till you will become a pure devotee. Abhishek bro.
Thank you.
All right, Ritu will read verse 21 purport. So from the bottom, about 7-8 lines, it starts once placed in some particular kind of body.
Hare Krishna, once placed in some particular kind of body, he comes under the control of nature, because the body, being matter, acts according to the laws of nature. At that time, the living entity has no power to change that law. Suppose an entity is put into the body of a dog. As soon as he is put into the body of a dog, he must act like a dog. He cannot act otherwise. And if the living entity is put into the body of a hog, then he is forced to eat stool and act like a hog. Similarly, if the living entity is put into the body of a demigod, he must act according to his body. This is the law of nature. But in all circumstances, the super soul is with the individual soul. That is explained in the Vedas, Mundaka Upanishad 3.1.1 as follows: Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakhya. The Supreme Lord is so kind upon the living entity that he always accompanies the individual soul and in all circumstances is present as the super soul or Paramatma. Hare Krishna.
So once placed in a particular kind of body, he comes under the control of nature because of the body. Being matter, he acts according to the laws of nature. At that time, the living entity has no power to change that law. We read in the example that a living entity put in a body of a dog, he must act like a dog. He cannot fly like a bird. Or whatever other animal you consider, he cannot act differently. He has to act according to the laws of nature of a dog. So soul in a dog's body, he cannot mew like a cat. Or souls in a dog's body, he cannot fly like a bird. What a person can do and cannot do is determined by the body in which the person is put in. But the consequences of emotional responses of the living entity, they are caused by bhoktratve, the enjoying mentality. That because the soul wanted to enjoy, hence he got a particular body. One of the devotees had asked this question, I think it was Shreyonchi, I can't remember who, that do we have a choice to get a particular body? So at this guy, we don't have a choice based on our karma. There are many factors. The body is matched by Brahmaji to satisfy our desires. During our next life, we come in front of Brahmaji, and Brahmaji is omnipotent enough to see through our desires, and he matches up to one of the 8.4 million life forms in which our most overarching desires are very easily fulfilled. So a soul in human body, when he sees stool, he will run away. But when a hog sees stool, the hog rushes towards the stool to eat it. Why? Because of bhoktratve. Because of particular enjoying mentality, the hog finds stool to be attractive. But humans don't find stool to be attractive. Therefore, Prakriti or material nature is the realm or arena or the cause of all cause and effects. And all emotions that we experience is because of bhoktratve, the soul's desire to enjoy. And this word bhoktratve, the enjoying mentality from 13.21, Krishna will elaborate this bhoktratve further in 13.22. And we have discussed that 13.22 is among the most important verses. 13.22 is the third junction point in Bhagavad Gita, and 13.22 is known as the Bij Vakya of material existence, the seed verse of material existence. Questions, comments, realizations?
Probably, can we say that because of the body, the arena is kind of limited for different people? It puts some limitations on us, and then within that arena, we have some space of doing things, just like that rope example is given of an animal, right? For 3 modes.
You are correct. That also is the correct factor. So you already described your point correctly, that Prakriti is the arena, and the body is given to us according to our past karma, our past inclinations, and our past association with a particular mode. Abhishek Prabhu.
Thank
So 13.22 is not a key memorization verse, but obviously a very, very important verse. So we'll recite this verse, and I will also repeat the overview that I had given at the start of chapter 13, that how chapter 13 to 18 flow. So 13.22 is a very important verse, the third junction point, and acharyas have called this as the Bij Vakya of Bhagavad Gita, the seed verse of material existence. Why? So in chapter 15, Krishna gives the metaphor of the upside down banyan tree to describe material existence. And the point of the upside down banyan tree is that everything is opposite in the material world, and the tree comes from a seed. Similarly, the whole material existence is grown on the enjoying mentality of the soul. The enjoying mentality is the seed. So 13.21 verse had the word bhoktratve, and 13.22 has the word bhumte. Both are identical in meaning enjoying mentality. So that bhumte, that seed of material existence, is introduced in 13.22 verse, on which the tree of material existence takes place. So the tree of material existence needs water for nourishment. That water is the three modes of material nature. So seed is introduced in 13.22. Water that nourishes the seed and the tree is described in chapter 14. Chapter 15 describes the tree of material existence itself, plus that how we need to cut down our attachment to the tree of material existence by determination. So we'll soon read and recite 13.22. 13.22 has the word Sangha, means association. And then in chapter 15, verse 3 and 4, Krishna describes opposite, asanga, that by detachment, one can become free. Chapter 16, the divine and the demoniac nature, the upper and the lower parts of the tree are described. Meaning chapter 16, the divine and demoniac are the two extremes of the tree. Chapter 17, divisions of faith, describes the intermediate parts, meaning people who are not explicitly devoted to God according to scripture, nor they are presently defiant of God. What happens to them? And chapter 18 is a summary of everything. So 13.22 is the seed verse that leads to the development of thought in subsequent verses and chapters. So I will recite 13.22, although not a key memorization verse, but definitely a very important verse. And then you can unmute and recite one line after me, please. So 13.22. Purusha pakati stohi bhumte pakati jan gunan karanam guna sango asya sad asad yoni janmashu. Everybody unmute and recite one line after me, please. Purusha prakati stohi
Purusha
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 Prakriti
Prakriti Stohi
Stohi
bhumte pakati jan gunan
Bhumte
Bhumte
Prakriti
Prakriti
Changunan
karanam guna sango asya
Karanam
Karanam
Guna
Guna
Sango
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 Asya
Asya
sad asad yoni janmashu.
Sad
Sad
Asad
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 Yoni
Yoni
Janmashu.
Janmasu.
Janmasu.
Shreyonshi, translation.
The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil among various species.
So the soul gets situated in material nature because of bhumte, enjoying mentality. The word bhumte has the same meaning as the word bhoktratve in 13.21. Both have same enjoying mentality. The soul gets situated in material nature because soul wants to enjoy the products of material nature in the form of the three modes. So the basic components of material nature are not attractive. So the basic components, the five big elements are earth, water, fire, air, ether. These are not attractive. But when these components are used to make a beautiful object, example, sunrise is sattvic, or object of opposite sex, that is rajasic, or alcohol is tamasic. So all these objects that are made with a mixture of these elements, these objects become attractive based on how we want to enjoy. So the soul wants to enjoy these objects. Therefore, if you follow 13.22, the second line says, Bhumte prakriti jan guna, that the soul wants to enjoy. And he says, because of that enjoying mentality, then he says, Karanam guna sango asya, that he associates with a particular guna. And the result is sad asad yoni janmashu, that the soul takes birth among good or evil species based on which guna I want to associate or which guna I want to enjoy. So this verse 13.22 will get elaborated in chapter 14, verse number 18, as to how 13.22 happens. So 14.18 describes that those in goodness, they move upwards toward higher planets. Those in passion, they stay on earthly planets. And those in ignorance, they go down to hellish planets. So here in 13.22, Krishna says, the way we associate with the modes determines our destination, that we will meet with good and bad species. Destination means which body we get in the material world. So Krishna is explaining that the desire to enjoy leads to transmigration to different species. So we have all taken birth in all the 8.4 million life forms, and now we have come to the highest of human form. And in human form only spirituality is possible, so we should not waste. So development of thought is that general happiness and distress comes because of bhoktratve, the enjoying mentality, and then that bhoktratve further leads to the different life forms. So the movie theater example again, I said that movie theater example comes up again and again, that if one is watching a movie, that itself will lead to certain pains and pleasures based on the movie the person is watching. Now, if a person likes to watch horror movies, then the person chooses the horror movies more and more, and the person gets caught in that completely. So initially, there is little bit of curiosity with the horror scenes, and then the person likes it. and chooses the horror movies more and more. Why? He wants to associate with a particular guna. Similarly, when a soul wants to enjoy, the soul gets into certain kinds of experiences of sukha and dukkha. And based on what enjoying mentality the soul has, the soul goes into another species where that particular enjoying mentality is more and more. So our bodies are given to us based on the kind of desires that we have. This is what is described in 13.22, that because of attachment to a particular mode, it leads to different life forms from the 8.4 million life forms. Questions, comments, realizations before we read the purport?
So it's correct to say like we initially we had more choice, but then by watching more and more horror movie, we ourselves reduced our choice making capacity in some sense.
In the material world, yes.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We did not have to come to the material world to begin with. When we have come to the material world, I have described earlier that we all have 8.4 million desires. And therefore, the 8.4 million life forms are there. And we have all lived, all of us. We all have lived through all the 8.4 million life forms, unless somebody gets a mercy and skips and comes directly to human form. That's rare. But otherwise, all of us have lived through all because we had all these desires. Now I want to satisfy this. I want to satisfy that. Abhishek, Prabhu.
And because of our desire, the situations will still come in front of us, even if we are trying to give up that desire now. No, that will be a testing ground.
Yeah, so we have discussed this multiple times from Bhagavad Gita 2.71 that giving up desire is not possible. Shunyavad is not possible. Desirelessness is not possible. We have to purify our desires, that we desire for Krishna, that is desirelessness. The very first line in 2.71 purport. Abhishek, Prabhu.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Shreyanshi, faster pace, purport if you want to read. Pratyush Prabhu first question.
Hare Krishna. My question is, are there any particular gunas which are good or bad? Like, for example, if someone is a priest, then it's easy for him to live a sattvic lifestyle. But if someone is part of the army and he needs strength and he needs a source of protein, so he might lead a tamasic or a rajasic guna. So,
So
which
hold
is
your,
right and which is wrong?
yeah, hold your question, because this is a question I'm going to ask you in the next chapter 14. Is it okay to park your question? Because there's a very important question. You're going to have fun with this
Sure,
question.
Prabhuji.
I'm
All
going
right.
to ask you this question. A very valid question. It's a very important question that we'll discuss at great length in the next chapter, chapter 14 of the modes. Right now, you don't have all the basis of the modes, and therefore we'll park this question. It's just in the two classes we'll discuss this question. Shreyanshi, faster pace, 22 purport.
This verse is very important for an understanding of how the living entities transmigrate from one body to another. It is explained in the second chapter that the living entity is transmigrating from one body to another, just as one changes dress. This change of dress is due to his attachment to material existence. As long as he is captivated by this false manifestation, he has to continue transmigrating from one body to another. Due to his desire to lord it over material nature, he is put into such undesirable circumstances. Under the influence of material desire, the entity is born sometimes as a demigod, sometimes as a man, sometimes as a beast, sometimes as a bird, as a worm, as an aquatic, as a saintly man, as a bug. This is going on, and in all cases, the living entity thinks himself to be the master of his circumstances, yet he is under the influence of material nature. How he is put into such different bodies is explained here. It is due to association with the different modes of nature. One has to rise, therefore, above the three material modes and become situated in the transcendental position that is called Krishna consciousness. Unless one is situated in Krishna consciousness, his material consciousness will oblige him to transfer from one body to another because he has material desires since time immemorial, but he has to change the conception. That change can be effected only by hearing from authoritative sources. The best example is here Arjuna is hearing the signs of God from Krishna, the living entity. If he submits to this hearing process, will lose his long cherished desire to dominate material nature, and gradually and proportionately as he reduces his long desires to dominate, he comes to enjoy spiritual happiness. In a Vedic mantra, it is said that as he becomes learned in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he proportionately relishes his eternal blissful life.
Abhishek Prabhu's earlier question gets answered in the last few lines in the purport, which reads, the living entity, if he submits to this hearing process, will lose his long cherished desire to dominate material nature, and gradually and proportionately as he reduces his long desire to dominate, he comes to enjoy spiritual happiness. Abhishek Prabhu, rest of you. Everybody on the same page?
Sometimes you have said that just hearing more and more classes is not very good. Can you explain that point with reference to this also?
So you have to have a balance, right? You are not, you have to judge for yourself. If you are a pure devotee, then you will have no activity but Krishna conscious activities 24 hours. And if you are not a pure devotee, you have to find a balance between material and spiritual duties. And I'm going to show you a visual in 18.46. It's a last verse in Bhagavad Gita on Karma Yoga. So we are all Grahasthas, we are all supposed to follow Karma Yoga. I'm going to show you a visual that Mother Jija from the other batch has made a hand drawing to explain that verse. And ever since I have used that verse, that drawing to explain, because that visual makes the verse understanding very easy to follow. Right? So you have to judge for yourself. We have discussed in 3.14, Yajna Karma Samudbhava. So you don't just blindly follow a particular verse or a particular section. So you have to find a balance. So Bhagavad Gita is one conversation. We have discussed that in the introduction of Bhagavad Gita, that this is a prescription. Bhagavad Gita is one prescription. You cannot take one part and ignore the other part. So if you want to hear more and more, well, then where is your surrender? Where is your shelter from of a spiritual master? So you have to find a balance. You still have to keep your body and soul together. Abhishek Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji.
All right. Now, verse 23, Krishna will describe the other Purusha. That after describing Purusha means the individual soul being caught by material nature. So 13.22 say, Purusha Prakriti Stohi. That Purusha is caught by material nature. Now 13.23, he will describe another Purusha, which is super soul, which is not caught by nature. Super soul is independent. Shruti 13.23 translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Text 23. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the Supreme Proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is known as the Super Soul. Hare Krishna.
Upadrasta Anumanta. Upadrasta means overseer and Anumanta means permitter. So Krishna is talking about several things in this verse, 13.23. First he says Para, transcendental. Ishvara, which is supreme. Upadrasta means overseer and Anumanta, permitter. So all these characteristics described, they clearly do not apply to the individual soul. We individual souls, we are not overseer and we are not permitters. Otherwise, we would do whatever we want to do. Actually, we depend on something beyond our control for our existence because we are controlled. So 13.22 refers to the individual soul who wants to enjoy the modes of material nature. He gets caught by Prakriti. Therefore, 13.22 says, Purusha Prakriti Stohi. And 13.23 says, Paraha, transcendental. So you can compare Prakriti Stohi is caught by material nature versus Upadrasta Anumanta, that overseer and permitter, the super soul, is not caught by anything. Now this contrast of the two Purusha was already clear here in chapter 13 verse 2 and 3, where Krishna has described about there are two types of Kshetrajna. And here in 13.23 is even more clear. That Krishna is talking on the same thought process. So 13.2 talks about the individual Kshetrajna, that we know our body, that too only partially. And 13.3 he says, there is another Kshetrajna, the super soul, who knows all bodies in 100%. That same thought process in 13.23, that he is the super soul. Monarch Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, I have a question. So we are independent, that's true. Prabhu, how about those like a pure devotee who are on the transcendental stage? Are they still dependent or independent?
Everyone is always dependent on
Oh, okay.
Krishna.
Okay,
Pure
okay.
devotees are more dependent on Krishna than materialistic people. Materialistic people, everybody is dependent on Krishna. Materialistic people have the thought that they are independent. Pure devotee never has that thought that he is independent.
Okay, Prabhu, got it. Thank you.
So let's do a quick recap of what Krishna has described here in chapter 13 from verse 20 onwards. Verse 20, he said, Prakriti and Purusha are eternal, plus the changes in material nature that come from matter that are temporary. 21, the first part says, material nature is the cause of all cause and effects. And the second part of 21 says, Bhoktratve, the enjoying mentality of the living entity, is the cause of happiness and distress. 13.22 is the seed verse of material existence, that because of bhungte, the enjoying mentality, is how the soul gets caught under Prakriti. And 13.23, Krishna describes that within this body there is another Purusha, that is Super Soul, the Paramatma, who is overseer and permitter of everything. So here's a question for you all. Why is it important to know all of this? What's the importance for all of this? Anybody can think of? Anybody wants to know? Why is Krishna describing all this?
Hare Krishna. Krishna wants to know because, I mean, the material world is a world of darkness. So the knowledge is just a torch which will help us, lead our way from this darkness into light.
Okay, very good. Shreyochi?
So we need this sort of enlightenment so that it stops us from getting reincarnated again and again.
Very good. Absolutely correct point. The Shreyanshi spoke to perfection, that once we understand this cycle of how we got into the material world, only then we can stop the cycle. And that's exactly what Krishna will describe in verse number 24. Therefore, I summarize that what was going on from verse 20 onwards. And why is this important? Is because when we know, Pratish Prabhu was also on the same thought process. Sumnima 24 translation.
Hare Krishna. One who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, the interaction of the modes of nature, is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. Hare Krishna.
Right. So the point being conveyed here in 13.24 is that one will not take birth again. Why one will not take birth again? Because one will understand that real life is beyond this material existence. That real life is transcendental. One will understand that whatever I am observing right now in the material world, my life, is actually just a movie. But beyond that movie, there is a real life. When one understands that one's real life is much more exciting than the movie, then one will stop watching the movie. Similarly, once the person understands that I am a soul, I have a real life in spiritual world which is far more exciting and fulfilling than this miserable material world life, only then one turns away from material life and focuses on real life. Everybody on the same page? Silence.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Sumnima, 13.24 purport, faster pace.
Purport: clear understanding of material nature, the supersoul, the individual soul, and their interrelation makes one eligible to become liberated and turn into spiritual atmosphere without being forced to return to this material nature. This is the result of knowledge. The purpose of knowledge is to understand distinctively that living entity has by chance fallen into the material existence. By his personal endeavor, in his association with authorities, saintly person, and a spiritual master, he has to understand his position and then revert to spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness by understanding Bhagavad Gita as it is explained by the personality of Godhead. Then it is certain that he will never come again into this material existence He will be transferred into spiritual world for a blissful eternal life of knowledge. Hare Krishna.
Right, so Prabhupada explains what is the purpose of this knowledge. The purpose of this knowledge is to understand distinctly that the living entity has by chance fallen down into material existence, and then we have to revert back to spiritual world. The essence and the purpose of this knowledge is that we have become entangled with matter and that we have to disentangle ourselves from matter. Questions, comments, realizations? All right, we won't be able to finish this chapter today. We will cover the last two verses in this section 25, 26 today, and then the remaining verses from 27 onwards are pretty straightforward. It will take about 10 minutes. We'll cover in subsequent class. I think everybody has read. Anybody left not to read? Abhishek Prabhu, did you read?
No, Praveen.
Read 25 translation.
13.25. Some perceive the supersoul within themselves through meditation, others through cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruitive desires.
So now Krishna will talk about the means by which the soul can come out of this entanglement of matter. So 13.25 gives three means which are generally for somebody who's on the transcendental path. And then 13.26 Krishna gives one more means which is for ordinary materialistic people. So first he says by meditation one perceives the self. Then he says others who may achieve this by Sankhya Yoga, means by analysis of the material elements, the 24 elements, that when you analyze the 24 elements, you understand that I as a consciousness, I am not present in the 24 elements. Then one goes beyond the 24 elements to the 25th element and finally comes to the 26th element. So here in 13.25, Krishna describes the 25th and the 26th element in the body, which is the soul and the super soul. And the third point is some people follow the Karma Yoga path. Abhishek Prabhu, read the purport faster pace. It starts midway. The Sankhya philosophers, halfway through the purport.
Mm. The Sankhya philosophers analyze this material world into 24 elements, and they place the individual soul as the 25th item. When they are able to understand the nature of individual soul to be transcendental to material elements, they are able to understand also that above the individual soul there is Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the 26th element. Thus, gradually they come to the standard of devotional service in Krishna consciousness. Those who work without fruitive results are also perfect in their attitude. They have given a chance to attain, to advance to the platform of devotional service in Krishna consciousness. Here it is stated that there are some people who are pure in consciousness and who try to find out the super soul by meditation. And when they discover the super soul within themselves, they become transcendent in situation. Similarly, there are others who also try to understand the supreme soul by cultivation of knowledge. And there are others who cultivate the Hatha Yoga system and who try to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by childish activities.
All right. So in the purport we just read, Prabhupada calls the soul as the 25th element and the super soul as the 26th element in the body. Now, these 3 points of how to elevate yourself to spirituality are for transcendentalists, but common people, do not know all these technicals of meditation, Sankhya, etc. Therefore, Krishna will recommend the hearing process specifically for ordinary people. Monar Prabhu, 26 translation.
Hare Krishna. 26 translation. Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. Hare Krishna.
So I fall in 13.26. I fall in 9.27 and 13.26. 9.27 is that I don't have bhakti, but I still follow the offering process. And 13.26 is that I follow the hearing process. My spiritual master gave me this hearing process. And I follow whatever instructions he gives is what I follow. So here in 13.26, Krishna is recommending the bhakti process of hearing. So 13.25, Krishna talked about three categories for those who have some knowledge of spirituality. But here in 13.26, Krishna is saying that others who do not know anything about spiritual knowledge, they do not know these Prakriti, Purusha, and other technical terms. Such ordinary people, after hearing from spiritual authorities, they start doing bhakti. So it is not just hearing, but here there is transformation that he is starting to worship that supreme reality. And Srila Prabhupada talks about hearing in terms of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Plus following in the footsteps of spiritual authorities. So Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that if a common man simply hears from authoritative sources, he can progress. Prabhupada says, although common man is not as capable as the so-called philosophers, the faithful hearing from authoritative sources, the bona fide spiritual master, will help one transcend this material existence and go back home, back to Godhead. That even if a person is without spiritual knowledge, he can still transcend by simply following the instructions. It's not simple hearing. No, you have to apply what you are hearing. So this chapter 13 can be very technical, that one has to know Geyam, Jnana, Kshetra, Kshetragya, Prakriti, Purusha, all these terms. And one would say, I heard that simply chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, one can go back home, back to Godhead, then why do I need to worry about all these technicalities? Therefore, even in the Jnana section, Krishna is assuring that even if one is without spiritual knowledge, if one hears from bona fide spiritual master and starts worshipping the supreme reality based on what he has heard, by such worship, one can attain the supreme destination and go beyond the cycle of birth and death. Questions, comments, realizations? Monarch.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, I have a question in 23 Parpat. Prabhu, what's the exact meaning of this line? 25. When they discover the super soul within themselves, Prabhu, what's the exact meaning of this?
Yeah, so you have Paramatma realization, right? This is Paramatma realization. Prabhupada says, we read that first you realize your soul, and through the soul, through the individual soul, you connect to the super soul. That's when you come to the Paramatma realization.
Okay, so not theoretically, but the realization. Okay.
Realization, correct.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
So we are just about at 10:30 p.m. Toronto time. So I made 3 announcements at the start. I will explain again. So first we have the image on the screen that Uttaman Prabhu from the Toronto temple is creating a yatra to go to Vrindavan, Jagannath Puri and Mayapur. If anybody is interested, you can please connect with him. He's from 11 February to 26 February 2026. I have the other image also for the same yatra event, just different visuals. And I will again share in the Zoom chat. Couple devotees joined later. So for the next class, for chapter 14, print this chapter 14 shell. I sent it again in the chat. Print this chapter shell. It's forward. Even if you are not able to print, you can always draw. They are straightforward boxes. So I also have this on the screen as well. Pretty straightforward boxes. You can just draw if you cannot print. And on this Sunday, here in Toronto, daylight saving time changes. So from following week, time will change. For Toronto devotees, the time will stay as the same 8:30 p.m. Toronto time. For India, it will become 7 a.m. Saturday. And for Nepal, it will become 7:15 a.m. Saturday. Rest of the verses for chapter 13 are straightforward verses. Will take about 10 minutes and we'll finish in subsequent class and start chapter 14 also, where Pratyush Prabhu's question will get answered. I will ask that question what Pratyush Prabhu asked the question. Hare Krishna, everybody.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhuji.